Hi friends, in this video lecture we will discuss about mechanism of breathing. In previous video lecture we already discussed about the steps of breathing. We discussed there are 5 steps. Just for a very quick revision, in first step there was exchange in between lungs and atmosphere, that we discussed is external respiration. Second, there was exchange in between alveoli and blood. In third step, oxygen just getting transported by blood up to cells or tissues. In fourth step, there was again exchange across cell membrane in between blood and cell cytoplasm. And in fifth step, there was utilization of oxygen by cells as well as removal of carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide was just transported back up to lungs by blood, and from lungs this will be just taken out by the process of expiration. So here this is about mechanism of breathing. So first, what is breathing? We discuss breathing is an external respiration. Anytime if there is involvement of any respiratory organ, then there will be breathing, and this is a part of external respiration, that is under aerobic respiration. So second part of anaerobic respiration is internal respiration or cellular respiration. So here we have to discuss about breathing. There are 2 steps. The first one is inspiration, second one is expiration. Inspiration is also known as inhalation as well as breathe in or breathing in, while expiration, this is exhalation or breathe out. Here in this process the air just moving inside the lungs, and in this process air moving outside the lungs. So here this is the diagram that we already discussed. This is a pair of lungs. Here this one is right lung, this is left lung, this is diaphragm, that is arc shape or dome shaped muscular structure which is voluntary in nature, but function wise this is involuntary. Most of the time this is functioning as a involuntary muscles, but we can also control the activities just by stopping breathing for few seconds or for few minutes. So this is diaphragm, that also known as phrenic muscles, is the primary muscles that helps in the process of breathing or in the mechanism of breathing. And here this is about the ribs. This is ribs that are forming rib cage around these lungs. Here this is mediastinum where heart is located. This one is trachea with cartilaginous C-shaped ring. Here this is about entry of air, that is inspiration, exit of air, that is expiration. So what actually occurring here in breathing? This is atmospheric air. This atmospheric air is oxygen enriched. Here if we discuss the percentage of oxygen in air, this is nearly 21%. So atmospheric air is highly enriched with oxygen. This air is taken inside the lungs. Here this is one for inspiration, while lungs air, this is highly enriched with carbon dioxide. Here we have to always taken this in comparison to each. Atmospheric air with respect to lungs air and lungs air with respect to atmospheric air. So atmospheric air carrying more oxygen. During inspiration this oxygen enters inside the lungs, and during expiration, this is 2 for expiration or exhalation. Here lungs air is just moving outside in the atmosphere. Now the next question, why there is such type of exchange? So simply, as we know the principle of diffusion, this will always taking place from higher concentration to lower concentration. Means the particular gas where this is maximum in quantity will move towards those sides where their quantity is comparatively less. So same thing is also going here. Now by this explanation this will be very clear. So here this is atmospheric air, and if we find out the atmospheric pressure, this is 760 mm of Hg, 760 millimeter of mercury. Now here if atmospheric pressure is this, then with respect to atmospheric pressure of air, if we compare lungs atmospheric pressure, so this is here 750 mm of Hg. So when atmospheric pressure is this and lungs pressure is this, here there is difference, so 760 and here there is deficiency of or difference of 2 mm Hg. So this is less with respect to this. So here we can say atmospheric pressure is high with respect to lungs air pressure. So this is plus, or we can say here this is positive pressure, here this is negative pressure, this is negative pressure. So air is moving just here from atmosphere to lungs. This is inspiration. Now when inside the lungs pressure is 762 mm Hg, this is positive pressure with respect to atmospheric pressure. Still in atmosphere the pressure is same, 760 mm Hg. So now here with respect to this atmospheric pressure, here pressure is more. That's why air is moving out from lungs into atmosphere, that is expiration. This is expiration. So here what is given here, 760 mm Hg. So atmosphere is a very large entity with respect to this. Lungs are nearly negligible, or we can say this is totally negligible structure. So here there will be no change usually in atmospheric pressure, but with respect to this there may be positive or negative change in atmospheric pressure of lungs. So here this upside arrow is for high pressure, downside arrow is for low pressure. Same for here, downside arrow low pressure, upside arrow high pressure. So how this difference is created inside the lungs, or how there is change in pressure inside the lungs with respect to atmospheric pressure. So we are discussing how changes occurs inside the lungs or in thoracic cavity where the lungs are located. So just there are a number of muscles which are responsible for this kind of changes. What are these muscles? So here these are muscles of breathing or muscles for breathing. Here these are of three type. The first one is diaphragm, that we earlier discussed, here located downside or posterior side of the lungs, and this is arc shape or dome shape. We also discussed this is voluntary muscles but performing as a involuntary muscle. Now this diaphragm is also known as phrenic muscles. Second one is intercostal muscles. So this is located in between the ribs. We discussed there are 12 pairs of ribs, each one originated from a vertebrae of thorax, that is from thoracic vertebrae. So there are 12 thoracic vertebrae out of vertebral column, and from each vertebrae there is origin of a pair of ribs, and these ribs connected anteriorly to the sternum, that is breastbone, here located just in front of or mid ventral of our body. This intercostal muscles categorized into two: external intercostal muscles and internal intercostal muscles. Externals are those which are located on the outer surface of ribs. Internal, these are oriented towards the inner surface of ribs. Here if we discuss, so these are ribs, like this one solen structure, another one, third one, fourth one. So these are ribs, and in between the ribs, like here in between the ribs, here at these sides there is presence of these muscles. So number of ribs from each side of lung, this is 12, or total this is 12 pair. So these muscles, intercostal muscles, are located in between. So they both are 11 in number. External intercostal muscles, in short this is EICM. Internal intercostal muscles, in short IICM, internal intercostal muscles. So they both are 11 in number. Now the third one is abdominal muscles, that is located in abdomen. So out of these three muscles, the major involvement of these two, diaphragm or phrenic muscles or diaphragmatic muscles, they are considered as primary muscle. They are considered as primary muscle for respiration, while intercostal muscles, they are considered as secondary muscles for breathing or respiration. Maximum time breathing occurs with the help of this, that's why they known as primary muscles. Now there will be contraction or relaxation in these muscles, that's why there will be change in the volume of lungs, and that's why the same will also reflected in the pulmonary chamber. Why? Because pulmonary chambers or pulmonary sacs, they are inside the thoracic sacs or thoracic cavity, and earlier we discussed this is a very airtight chamber. So if there will be a minor change in the cavity of thorax, why? Because of movement or because of contraction in these muscles. Suppose this diaphragm is moving down and these ribs are moving outward or upward, then there will be change in the thoracic cavity volume, and because of air tightness, the same will also reflected over the lungs. So this changes is responsible for increasing or decreasing the pulmonary volumes, and that's why the pulmonary pressure, that is lung pressure with respect to atmosphere. So when lung pressure decreases like 758 with respect to 760 of atmosphere, then air will move in. When lung pressure increases just like 762 mm of Hg with respect to atmospheric pressure, then air will move out. So these are the changes which occurs. Now what changes occurs during inspiration? So here first thing, that is about inspiration. Inspiration is an active process. Why and how this is active process? Because during inspiration there will be contraction in these two muscles, diaphragm as well as external intercostal muscles, they both are getting contracted, and that's why this is an active process. Because for contraction there will be requirement of energy currency, that is ATP. So inspiration is an active process. Later on we discuss what changes occurs during the contraction of these two muscles, and that's why both these muscles are known as inspiratory muscles. They both are responsible for inspiration, that's why known as inspiratory muscles. Now expiration, so this is given here. Expiration is a passive process. Why? Because during this process the events are just going to be reverted what earlier performed during inspiration. So diaphragm as well as external intercostal muscles, they both are getting relaxed now, and that's why this is a passive process. Now sometimes there may be forceful expiration. Forceful expiration means forcefully we are trying to remove out air from our lungs with respect to normal expiration. At this time there is involvement of abdominal muscles. So this muscles comes here in action, abdominal muscles as well as internal intercostal muscles, and in both these muscles there is contraction. So again forceful expiration is in active process. Forceful expiration is an active process. So these are the changes which occurs. Now this is here in the diagram. Few things are very important needed for you. So this is the anterior side of the lungs, that is known as apex, which is conical, while this is lower surface, that is known as base of lungs. So towards upper region, towards head region, the orientation of lungs is known as anterior surface, while towards diaphragm, this is posterior surface. Towards abdomen or front facing of our body, this is ventral surface, while towards back side, that is towards backbone or vertebral column, this is known as dorsal surface. So when there will be contraction and relaxation of these muscles, they actually causes changes in these four surfaces, So now here, this is the diagram that is given in NCERT. So first one is about inspiration. What events are going on during inspiration? So in the diagram, you can see air entering inside the lungs. So for entering of air, we earlier discussed what condition is needed. The pressure inside the lungs must be less with respect to atmospheric pressure. That is, negative pressure must be here inside the lungs. Now what you can see, so there will be outward and upward movement of ribs as well as sternum, while there is downward movement of diaphragm. This is just because of contraction in both. So contraction in external intercostal muscles, this causes uplifting and outward movement of ribs and sternum. So there will be change in dorsoventral surface of lungs or thoracic cavity. And when there will be pulling down of diaphragm or contraction in diaphragm, so arc shape, what you can see here, arc shape is the normal shape, but just because of pulling down side or contraction in diaphragm, this will become almost flat. So this will cause change in the volume of lungs in anterior-posterior side or anterior-posterior surface. As we discussed earlier, anterior is towards head, posterior is towards abdomen, ventral is towards front facing towards mouth, while dorsal is towards backbone of our body. So overall these changes, the contraction in both will cause increment in the volume of lungs, and increment in volume of lungs causes decrease in pressure inside the thoracic cavity. The same will also reflected over the pulmonary cavity or lungs, and that's why air will move in. So question may be, why there is contraction in diaphragm and external intercostal muscles? So this is just regulated by neurons. This is because of a regular rhythmic movement of or messaging via neurons to these muscles from nervous system, and that's why there will be rhythmic contraction and rhythmic relaxation. So contraction, that is for inspiration, this occurs for 2 seconds, while expiration, that is a passive process, this will occur for 3 seconds. So one breathing, this takes nearly 5 second time. So how many breathing occurs in a minute? This is 12 to 16 time a minute. So you can say 12 to 16 breaths per minute. How this can be measured? So this can be measured with the help of spirometer, and spirometer is very helpful just for clinical assessment of pulmonary functions. So spirometer is very unique. Now about expiration. So what changes occurs during expiration? So this diagram is about expiration. Here you can see the changes are just opposite to the inspiration. Here the ribs and sternum, they are returning back just because of relaxation, and same for diaphragm, this is returning back towards very close to the lungs. During both these relaxations, now there will be decrease in thoracic cavity volume, and the same will also reflect over the pulmons or lungs. So there will be decrease in lungs volume, and that's why pressure increases. So now here inside the lungs there will be positive pressure with respect to atmosphere, like you can say 762 mmHg, while in atmosphere this is 760 mmHg. So air will move out from lungs to atmosphere. So these are the changes which occurs during inspiration and expiration. Now if there is forceful expiration, so during forceful expiration there will be now contraction in abdominal muscles and internal intercostal muscles. So contraction for the first time when we discuss for inspiration, this contraction was downside or towards posterior side or towards abdominal side. Now the contraction is opposite, this is towards lung side. So this will cause more pressure from abdominal side to the lungs just because of abdominal muscles. So there will be decrease in volume in lungs or in thoracic cavity in anterior posterior direction, and same when there will be contraction in internal intercostal muscles, this will cause more closeness of ribs as well as sternum over the lungs. So here this will decrease the volume of lungs or thoracic cavity in dorsoventral surface, and that's why there will be huge decrease in pulmonary volumes, and that's why more pressure will be there. This will cause further more release of air from the lungs. So here abdominal muscles and internal intercostal muscles, they are considered as a muscle of expiration, or you can say forceful expiration. While normal expiration is a passive process, there will be relaxation of diaphragm or phrenic muscles as well as external intercostal muscles. And here what is important, again a very sharp, you have to memorize there are two events that occurs during breathing: inspiration, expiration. Inspiration we discuss is in active process. Why? Because there will be contraction of diaphragm or phrenic muscles as well as external intercostal muscles, and expiration is a passive process. Here there will be relaxation of the same two, that is diaphragm as well as external intercostal muscles. While forceful expiration is again an active process, and this time there will be involvement of abdominal muscles as well as internal intercostal muscles. So both are getting contracted, that's why there will be decrease in pulmonary volumes and pressure will increase, so air will move out. Next point you have to memorize here, respirometer, that is for clinical assessment of pulmonary volumes. And the last one is about number of breaths per minute. So this is 12 to 16 breaths per minute. So thanks for watching. If you like this, then please share, comment and subscribe the channel. Thanks.